and welcome to Fender Play Live. I'm Eugene Edwards, and today we're giving an introduction to funk guitar. We'll be showing you some techniques, some tones, and some tunes to get you started playing funk. Plus, we'll tell you how you can win a free guitar later in the episode. Helping us with today's topic is a Fender Play Live newcomer, Brian Robert Jones. Brian, hello.
What's up? Happy to be here.
We're thrilled to have you, and we're also joined as always by the one and only Dylan Caligiuri. Dr. Dylan, say hello.
Hello, funky.
Right there, that's the highlight of my week, right there. You just saw it, everybody. Brian is a multi-instrumentalist who currently plays with Vampire Weekend and Gwen Stefani, and we're thrilled to have him on the show. Tell us, Brian, what you're playing there today. It looks like a pretty unique guitar.
Yeah.
Yes, this is my, I call it the basement collection Strat. It was left in a friend's basement when probably 12 years ago at this point or something like that. And it kind of just sat there for long enough to the point where he was just like, "Do you want to just take it?" Like the person who brought it here, like it's been years. So it's been with me since I was like 15 or 16 years old, and it's gone through a couple paint jobs, and now it's I painted it.
So that's you.
Yes.
Wow.
I painted this one. Quarantine was boring, so
you did.
That's awesome.
had to fill the time somehow.
Yeah.
It looks unique for sure. Can we
yeah.
hear it? Can you just kind of show off for a few bars?
Of course. Yeah, it's a little it's a great guitar. It has some lipstick pickups in it that my friend put in there for me.
Hip.
Sounds really good. I really like this guitar. It
Sounds good. I do have some things as well from the Here You Want This collection, and those they go a long way. And Dylan, what about you? What are you holding there, buddy?
Well, this is not a Liberated guitar. This is fresh off the line. It's an Am Pro 2 Tele Deluxe. It's seafoam green. It looks incredible. It's got coil taps on both of these pickups, which is awesome. I'll show you. Let's check this out. It sounds pretty darn good.
Yeah.
Nice and percussive, nice, clean, and funky. All right, and this of course, is my American original in the Fiesta Red, and I'm keeping my little bridge plate on there because if I play it all, it's just going to be the front pickup. Now, let's get to it. Brian will be playing some things of his own and some songs from the site today, so make sure you check out the Deep Dive Funk Rhythm Guitar Collection that we've linked in the description and comments. And of course, as always, if you have any questions, please drop them in the comments section and we'll try to answer them. Let's start out with hearing some classic funk. Brian, can you please play some Chic for us?
Yes. Play it. There's a couple different ways Nile Rodgers plays it, but I did a deep dive on YouTube and I tried to figure out this is what he usually plays.
Okay.
So this is that song Live Freak, yeah. 1, 2. That's kind of the main groove of it.
That is definitely the main groove of it. Okay, so let's back up and begin with the basics.
Yeah.
What are some of the defining traits of funk that makes it different from, say, rock or blues, just broadly speaking?
I think the guitar isn't as much of a lead instrument in a lot of funk music, and it's almost like a part of the percussion element of the band more so. A lot of times, it's not. There's not a lot of like ripping. There are a lot. There's a lot of cool like P-funk guitar solos and stuff like that.
Maggot Brain, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. There's a lot of cool stuff like that, but there's not. I'd say like largely it's cleaner and it's just like percussive and fun and a lot of times pretty simple. But it's about how you play it as opposed to like how hard the part is. Like playing funk well is about how good you can sound playing the part. I think.
Oh,
and it's
well
not necessarily always difficult. But
Right, and so it seems, it seems like you're saying like you are much more part of the rhythm section as a guitar player than like this out front lead thing in some of the other genres.
Absolutely,
gotcha.
In my opinion.
And then no, that's it. Yeah, and well, let's dive into some of the common funk techniques. We're going to look at some fret hand techniques, then some strum hand techniques, and we'll definitely talk about tone today as well. So if you're about to ask about that, we will get to it, I promise. Let's start with talking about the fret hand. For beginners, where do we start with our fret hand when talking about funk guitar, Brian?
There's a lot of like playing multiple notes at once. Like for example, the Le Freak thing, there's a lot of barring that's going on because you kind of just like you have this thing going. You kind of your left hand is in charge of a lot of the rhythm. Actually, you'd be surprised. Like a lot of muting and a lot of kind of catching things before they ring out too long. Like it's this opposed to like doing this as opposed to. My right hand's doing the same thing, but my left hand is like muting it. So.
Yeah, it's like your fret hand is like doing a press and then release thing.
Exactly.
Because I noticed when you were playing, your strum hand was moving in the exact same motion the whole time.
Yeah.
So it's like kind of an optical illusion. So you have some muting going on in the fret hand, and then and are there some common like chord shapes?
The ones that I'm familiar with in a lot of kind of like the 70s and 80s stuff, there's a lot of minor seven chords, like bar chords even. Like Nile Rodgers uses a bunch of bar chords and Le Freak. There's literally just right off the bat an A minor bar chord. That's how you start it. And I mean a lot of the minor seven chords, like E is like a big key, and you do all out of the. And you got your bar chords are a lot of it, a lot of minor seven chords, a lot of major seven chords, a lot of stuff like that, and you can do a lot of stuff on the top three strings too.
Yeah,
there's a lot of that, like kind of the spicy little. If you're not trying to go as big as that, if you kind of just want to sneak in there. Tight little chords up on the bottom strings.
One we hear a lot in James Brown, and we will get to James Brown, is Jimmy Nolan would use a lot of ninth chords, so like that right there, and you can just slide that around up or down and get a lot out of there. Now, Dylan, real quickly, in terms of the chord thing in funk, major, minor chords, what's the relationship there?
Yeah, and I should mention we're going to unpack some of that rhythmic complexity stuff in a moment coming up. And also there's lessons on Fender play on every single one of the kinds of chords that we just mentioned, as well as the rhythmic technique. It's called Stopping Sound. Rhythmic Tricks is the whole course on how to do that. So if you're confused about it, head to the site. Why major and minor seventh chords, right? So when you add a seventh to the chord, you normally have a triad, which tri means 3-note chord. So they might repeat. Like a C chord has C, E, and G are the notes in it. And they repeat. There's a C, an E, a G, and a C, and an E, and a G, right? So they're stacked on top of each other. When we make it a seventh chord, we have 4 notes in the chord. So it's a little bit more depth. It's a little bit more prestige, if you will, to the chord. So here's a regular E minor chord, right? Okay, it's pretty good. It's nice. E minor 7.
It's bigger.
It's
a lot more space somehow. Right. It's like a wider chord, yeah.
And so this is that melding of jazz, which has, R&B, which has jazz influence in it, into funk, right? And kind of as that melded together, funk took from all these different rock, it took from jazz, it took from R&B, and it took what it wanted. And it wanted the major and minor seventh chord, so it took them.
We have a quick question from Sherry Hoyer, who's watching on Facebook. Brian, is there a lot of riffing in funk guitar?
Sherry. For sure, absolutely. You a lot of times you'll stumble across a regular pattern that you're playing in a song over and over again, and you can pick and choose your moments to kind of add your own little spice in there. So if you're playing like for example, if you're playing something just like an A minor groove and you're just kind of holding it down, playing with the guitar and drums, you're playing with the bass and the drums, you're not sticking out too much, and you're just 1, 2, 3, 4. Like, it would be boring if you just kept doing this, but if you hit him with a little. Like, you can add. There's a lot of room for personality in funk.
Yeah, I know. When you were playing Le Freak, it seems like you were going chords, and there's like boom, bam, doom. There's these little single note things that peek out in between the chord, the triads and things you were playing. Or here's one from the side is by the Meters of New Orleans. Is we've got Sissy Strut, I think it is.
Yeah,
I mean that whole thing's. It is a riff, built with syncopation and with fret hand muting and some of those techniques. So definitely a lot of riffing in funk guitar. I mean, you can make a case that some of the classic James Brown stuff, yes, you're playing a chord, but because you're so much part of the rhythm section, maybe the whole thing's a riff.
yeah.
I mean, would we call that rhythm playing, or would we call that a riff? It kind of rides the line. I think it's kind of interesting. What about scales, by the way? Are there particular scales that we want to know?
I would say the one that is commonly used is the Dorian scale, which is it's one of the modes. It's the second mode of the major scale. So you're starting on the second, scale degree. And that kind of has, the way that scale is built out is it has, the minor 1 chord. So say you're playing in D Dorian. So if you're in D Dorian, you have the D minor 7 chord. And then you go up to the 4, and you have this little, it's a major. So you have this little duality between from this top note, you'll hear it little go, and that's where you find a lot of the tension, like in kind of classical music or, more typical music, you'll hear the kind of pull you want to hear is the 1 chord to the 5 chord. And this is kind of a different thing in funk music a little bit, where you go to the 1 chord, the 1 minor chord to the 4 major, and it kind of works. And
very much so.
It builds a lot of tension.
I remember thinking when Uptown Funk was it came out. I remember that was one of the, amongst many things that they got right on that record and paying in terms of paying tribute, was that 2 minor to the 5 thing. It really hung in that Dorian mode thing. So that's a great way of great thing to point out. One more thing about the muting concept again. You mentioned your fret hand is more responsible for the rhythm than the strum hand. And we have a question from Aaron Couture. He's saying, are you using palm muting or just fret hand muting?
Typically when you're doing chordal things and you're kind of, when the right hand's really going, which is a lot of funk music, you are not doing too much palm muting, and you're kind of just letting off of the string a little bit instead of like, so you're playing hard on this, say you're playing this little thing right here, and you just want to like lift your left hand off of the frets a little bit and then keep playing, and you kind of just pick and choose the parts where you want to hop in. Yeah. So say you're just doing this, and then you just fret the strings for a second. Like, I'm not really moving. My right hand's doing the same thing the whole time. I'm doing dictating all the rhythm with my left hand.
Gotcha.
With my fret hand.
So there you go, Aaron. I think that's a perfect demonstration there. It was definitely the fret hand muting there.
Yeah.
And we have a question from Sean Brisbane on Facebook.
Sean.
Yep. I have all kinds of trouble maintaining my pick when I strum fast in this funk style. Like Sean, it goes like flying off across the room, right?
Yeah.
Happens to me too. Any tips? That's a great question. Any tips there, Brian?
I kind of play really hard, and I have to hang on to the pick really hard, and not necessarily that's, I might not be the best person to ask this, but I play really hard, and I'm just so used to it at this point, and I just keep an iron grip on this, and I know that it could happen any moment. It still happens. Everyone still has problems with that.
Right? No. Yeah, mine definitely go flying all the place. Dylan, do you think maybe should Sean experiment with different gauges of pick, maybe use a lighter one or a heavier, depending on what he's using? Could that help?
Yeah, you could try that. I mean, generally people like, if you're going to do fast picking, they like a really heavy pick because it helps you draw across the strings easier. And if you're going to do a lot of strumming, they like a little bit lighter pick. I've noticed that heavier picks, really heavy picks, seem to tend to fly out of people's hands easier because of their conflict with the strings, if you will,
Yeah.
So maybe something in the mid-range, like a medium Fender pick, might give it a shot.
Give it a shot.
Yeah.
Sean, give it a shot.
Yeah.
Here's another quote from Diego Villafañe. What a great name. How can I start to develop that left-hand muting technique? Brian, how you can get someone just if you had a beginning student in front of you, what would you get them? How would you get them started on that?
If I were you, I would start by first off just muting the strings completely and kind of just going back and forth, trying this out, and make sure you get it nice and dead. All the strings are dead, and then what I would recommend doing is try to just add one note at a time. So say you're doing this and you want to try to play this C right here, and just keep playing this with your right hand, and then practice, playing it and then muting it as soon as you can, like, because you're always gonna be picking with this right hand, and if you can find a way to kind of get in the groove of that, and then once you kind of have mastered that, maybe try to add two notes and bar the C and the E on the G and the B string respectively. Try that, and then once you have that, try to and just focus on muting the strings, and then try adding more. And then, you'll get to the point where you're unstoppable.
That's a great tip. Okay, so now we've been talking a lot about rhythm, and that comes mostly from the strum hand. So what's your strum hand typically doing when playing funk guitar, Brian?
There's a lot of them. It's not all the time. Sometimes you're doing some pretty precise stuff, but I'd say majority, if you're playing funk rhythm guitar, this hand is going pretty much all the time.
And you're hitting all 6 strings right now.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes if you have to play something really precise, you can zero in, but largely you're just going to town with your right hand. Mm-hmm. Even you'll be surprised. Even some parts that you think are not quite like that are a lot like that, because people are muting so much, or they're kind of this is kind of always happening. Like at least internally, that's always happening. You want to have a good pulse in your head. That groove, it's that motor that's constant in funk music that keeps that really kind of generates that music. Dylan, how do you establish that constant rhythm on the strum hand?
Oh man, yeah. So it's definitely a tricky thing, right? So I'll tell you what. It's the upstrokes that are the most difficult. We're pretty good at going down. Coming up is what seems to mess us up. Same thing with sweeping and other guitar techniques. So the same thing that Brian was just talking about, like if you're doing this, and we have a lesson on the site, it's how to read 16th notes. It's a whole course in what this is, this whole concept. So without going into the minutia of that, but practicing going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2 with the metronome, and then practice accenting the ups. Down, and the last up. So it's basically you're developing independence in being able to accent the different 16th notes and being able to show them off. That's one way at it.
That's a tremendous tip. That was and really well demoed, Dylan.
Stop. Come on.
You get it. You're going to get a star. You're going to get it. You're going to get a star. Oh, here's a question. Great handle from Audible Headache. Does loosening up the wrist make it easier to get the funk?
I've definitely heard talk of the loose versus limp wrist. And some people like it really loose. I'm pretty tight. I would say I'm in the middle, actually.
You're in the middle, because
now that I try it, I'm like, I think I'm not quite loose. I'm not quite tight.
It looks like both your forearm and the wrist are involved. So you're kind of are kind of
definitely.
All right, well, so Audible Headache. Try it. You're probably going to salt to taste on that one. Try it with just the wrist, and then see if you can involve the forearm a little more. And you might like Brian be somewhere in the middle on there. Now, a great example of the importance of the rhythm hand is "Sex Machine" by James Brown. Can we hear a little bit of that now, Brian?
Of course.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'll just stay on this pickup. 1, 2, 3, 4. Go to the B section.
Yeah.
I learned that.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's a fun one for sure. And once again, the right hand.
Yes.
It doesn't. The rhythm is just. But that's going the whole time pretty much.
That's why I'm so glad this is obviously a visual and audio show, so people can see that motor of a right hand you have going there, that it's so consistent, and it's not exactly everything we hear, although we are hearing the percussive strumming that's going through there. So, and again, a shout out to Jimmy Nolan. And also, I think I said this, anytime James Brown comes up, we still don't give him enough credit. I think we still underestimate his influence on Western music.
It was crazy.
But Jimmy Nolan was his guitar player mostly in the 60s, and he played on Sex Machine. I noticed in the fret hand, a lot of bar chords, right? Like you'd mentioned earlier.
A lot of triads, yeah.
And
the 9 chord that you mentioned earlier, that's the 9, or no, wait, is that the 9? No, that's the 6. I messed that up.
Correct.
Oh, but there is a 9 in there. Okay,
Yeah,
that's why I got confused. I was like, there is a 9 in there.
We'll
Am I
take
crazy?
the 9.
Yeah, there is a 9,
Yes.
and then you add the 6 on it.
There
Or the
you go.
13, however you want to talk about that. But
Right.
yeah,
The pretty notes, as Charlie Parker would say.
of course.
Now, here's the thing. So, oh wait, we got a good question from Jason O. What would be the most common chord structure for
Jason.
Whoa.
Wow.
We may have answered that earlier, but
I would
maybe not.
I have a funny take on this,
Go for it.
but I think it's just one chord. A lot of these, in terms of like progressions, a lot of funk songs don't have, crazy chord progressions. They'll sometimes have like a turnaround, but there's so many like P-funk songs and other songs that are just one chord the whole time, but they spice it up in different ways. And they add, fun extensions and make it fun and make it groovy.
Yeah.
But and then another one of them is kind of like the 1 to 4, the or as you were saying, with the 2 minor to 5 earlier, that kind of like the. That's in a lot of songs. A lot of songs follow that too.
I'd say if there's a chord change that kind of helps define funk and stuff like that, I think that might be at the 2 minor to the 5. Here's a good question, and boy, is it a good segue question from Patrick Myers. How do you dial in your tone for those chords? Like, especially when you're up the neck. So let's just talk about tone in funk now. Go for it, Brian.
Yeah, I typically actually don't do too much in this pickup position, but this is just the one I'm using right now is just fully the neck pickup just by itself, and that was a lot of Nile Rodgers Chic stuff. That's a lot of that's just a lot of that, but and it's just like it's kind of like full, and it's not too bright, doesn't cut too much, so it's kind of nice for rhythm parts where it doesn't cut through the mix too much. But if you kind of go to some of the in between positions. You can get a little more bite out of your guitar because I don't typically like to play too much on like the bridge pickup necessarily when I'm playing funk. It's like, I mean, that actually that doesn't sound bad.
Sounds real good.
Yeah, but I that's not my first choice. For me personally, I kind of like the in between positions. Like like the kind of like the
2 and 4 or the out of phase.
Yeah. Because you get a little more bite, and especially if you kind of like compress them really nicely, that's a huge point of funk guitar too. Like if you got a nice compressor pedal, kind of smack it a little bit, and get all those chickas right in your face.
Right.
This is my favorite position to play in it. Is this second or fourth? I actually don't know. It's the one between. It's like after the
You're between bridge and middle?
Yes, between bridge and middle.
That's 4.
That's
correct?
fourth position. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know what. Yeah. Okay. But it's great. I like how it sounds a lot.
Yeah.
Because it's nice and bitey. You can get right on top of everything, and you can get some nice,
Some natural compression there too.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
should be said because I was talking about Jimmy Nolan and James Brown's band, but he played a lot of on the James Brown records. We're hearing P90 pickups on that. He's using like a semi hollow body guitar, but it seems as those single coil pickups seem to be the more go to type of pickup rather than humbuckers.
Yeah, typically yes, for
now,
sure.
Now, Brian, is there a classic funk guitar, like the way that a Telecaster is kind of iconic for country? Is there a model that works that way for funk, in your opinion?
I kind of feel like it's the Fender Strat.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of how I feel about it, at least. And there's you get a lot of versatility out of this.
Yeah.
And even for for the chordal stuff, it's so great. It doesn't hit you over the head too much, but even for some of like the more single note funk stuff where like that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is more iconic in the funk scene than any other guitar.
Yeah.
I think
I'm sure there are some other ones, and
Well, you mentioned Nile Rodgers, and there's that white Strat of his. He calls it the Hitmaker, and he still plays it to this day. What about amp settings or effects? What for a beginner? Like, is there somewhere we can get someone started on that?
Yeah, I think a compressor, getting a cool compressor pedal is a great place to start with that.
Mm-hmm.
And on as far as like amp settings, I kind of add a little, not too much low end. I don't typically like to add too much.
Okay.
And
because you want to stay out of the way of the bass player and the kick drum, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you can kind of salt to taste, like you said earlier. It's but I think getting a nice compressor with a little bite on it, maybe with the EQ of the amp, could be really cool.
That's a good point, because the compressors really help bring out those percussive rakes. It's going to give them equal value to the fretted notes. Dylan, on the Mustang amp, and if you can talk about the tone app as well in general, what do we have there for people in terms of that'll help them get towards the funk?
Yeah, so like we were talking about, there's kind of two roles guitar plays in funk music. Generally, one of them's like a tenor guitar part where it's all right. So it's basically like an idea where you need to hear single notes really well, and another one where you're hearing that where you've got chicka chickas going on, right? And so the famous amps that are on the Mustang GTX for this are Princeton's. You've got the Bassman that works really well with some breakup. The Dual Showman really works well for totally clean versions of this. You can toss the simple compressor on there. This is a really great amp for funk tones, actually, believe it or not. It really works well.
On my Mustang, I'm using the basic Bandmaster setting, which is a pretty. I mean, that would be a loud, big, clean amp.
Absolutely,
Big speakers, a lot of information
Cuts
coming through.
Yeah.
Real quick shout. We have a bunch of questions. We're going to do rapid fire here, but before that, shout out from Brett Santucci. He says, "This is so good. You guys consistently outdo yourselves.
Oh.
Great guest." Well, we agree. Brian is a great guest, and this is not the last we'll see of him. Now, some questions from Kathleen Kenny LaFollette. Hopefully I said that right. Sorry, Kathleen. On Facebook, is funk only for those who have long fingers?
Oh, no.
No.
I don't think so, right?
No.
Funk's for everybody.
Yeah, funk's for, especially as you said earlier that sometimes we're playing just those top three strings.
Yeah.
So that doesn't require a real, and some of those bar chords we're playing, you always get a guitar with a slightly thinner neck too, could help out. But
Kathleen, if you can dance, you can funk. That's what I say.
I love that.
That's the case.
Wow, you stole that from Socrates, but yes, it still holds true. This is
Socrates.
Yeah. That's so great. So from Malt McGill, also watching. He's from the Facebook community, actually. What about someone like Prince? Oh, let's talk about Prince.
Ooh, wow.
Again, by the way, not big hands.
No, hey.
So this goes back to Kathleen's question.
Kathleen.
If you believe that the intro to Kiss by Prince is pretty funky, then that solves that. You don't need long fingers. But yeah, Prince, I think he was maybe the perfect product of all the funk and R&B that had come before, right? He's like the perfect melting pot of it all, and then could turn around and then do like a blazing like hard rock solo at the same time.
Yeah,
Yeah, they just uploaded a HD version of that. Him playing While My Guitar Gently Weeps at the George Harrison Memorial thing.
Yes.
And it is just, I don't know if you haven't seen that video.
All the other guitarists are standing around going like,
it's worth watching.
Yeah.
Also,
it's like Jeff Lynne and George Harrison's son and Tom Petty, and they're all just like, oh my God. Like,
I just want to find out how to work out that gag where the guitar just disappears up into the rafters. That's the most important thing for me. So from Ryan Johnson, who or what are standard funk artists and funk songs to check out? Brian.
I mean, like you've been saying this whole time, Eugene, I think it's James Brown is such a great place to start. P-Funk's a great place to start. Nile
And
Rodgers
fun.
produced so many fun songs in the 70s and 80s that are great. And you can kind of just go to his entire production discography, and there's going to be a lot of great stuff. All the stuff he did with Madonna. There's like
David
a lot of
Bowie.
great. I mean, I've personally loved my favorite funk guitar playing is probably all the playing on the kind of like Off the Wall by Michael Jackson.
Oh,
the
yeah.
Thriller record, like Paul Jackson Jr. playing all
Yes.
those like the kind of the single note, like the master of single note funk guitar. There's so many just, oh my gosh.
That's a great single note with the raking. Just brilliant playing.
Just incredible stuff all around.
Very Stratocaster sound too, by the way, going to another thing. This is from Stephen Scott. How did you begin practicing funk techniques? And who were your main influences, Brian?
How did I begin playing that? I just, for some reason, I was really enamored with, it's a quick story, but
Go for it.
I was really into pop punk growing up. That was like
Okay.
what I learned how to play everything. That's how I learned to play. And then I started playing with these other people who are more into jazz and stuff like that. And they just showed me minor 7 chords. And I just became or minor 7 and major 7 chords. And it blew my mind. I was like, oh my gosh, this is the coolest thing ever. And I just became obsessed with playing these like big chords. And I just like couldn't stop playing them. And I just like, and I grew up listening to a lot of funk music and dance music, and it kind of just was a natural thing where I just would every time I would noodle, I was just playing minor 7 chords and major 7 chords, and I was just like, wow, this is so fun. So I just played these big chords, and I just kind of subliminally learned this right hand thing. Just had a great time. Just
Interesting. I think that's interesting, though. That you came to it from the fret hand, from those chord voicings first, and then the right hand kind of followed, kind of figured it out. That's pretty interesting. Huh.
Yeah.
I would. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's put all this together. Let's put the fret hand, the strum hand, the tone. Let's put it together. And Brian, just cook for a while. Just improv a funk vibe for us, please.
I will try some stuff out. Sorry, I'm just noodling now.
Very nice.
No. We encourage noodling from our guests. Actually,
That's right.
I love to
that's
noodle.
actually that goes in the bonus section. Thank you
Gets
so
me in a
much
lot
for
of
this.
trouble.
Well, also could land you a gig too.
That's true.
Here's a quick final thought, though. Why do you think? Because we always encourage people to play as many genres as possible. It makes you a more complete musician. But more specifically, why do you think guitarists learning to play should try their hand at funk guitar?
There's kind of going off what you said. Like there's always something to learn from every style of music, and there's going to be something. Anything you like can become part of your kind of player personality. So I'm sure studying stuff, you always find little bits and pieces of like, oh, it's pretty cool. Like there's always different kinds of things you can learn from different genres. I mean, there's so much that you can. It's a wide world, and it's great to just expand your vocabulary.
One aspect I think you might have it because you're saying you originally were a bass player. You're
Yes.
saying you played in your high school jazz band and you play a lot of bass as well. So maybe as a bass player, like could learning funk guitar help a guitar player understand the role of the rhythm section? Like think of the beats per bar a little more.
Absolutely. I think learning how everything locks into place in a groove is really important because it helps you in a band setting not overstep where you're, not overstep where you shouldn't go, where step out. Some people think they're the lead guitar player when they play a funk groove, and that you're a lot of times you're not. You kind of got to make sure you're taking a back seat when you need to, and it's actually really fun. As someone who becomes a bass player, being in the back seat and kind of just grooving along is so fun. and highly recommend doing that. Yeah.
I remember at an airport, I bumped into the guy who played for years. He played guitar with Al Jarreau, and I asked him for like some sort of tips. And he says, in terms of if you really want to be funky, he says, don't play on the 2 or 4. And so I was obsessed with it for a while. I was like, how do I not play on the 2? He just gets out of the way of it. But that was one of his little ways. But it makes you, as a guitar player, it makes you think about where's the 2 and where's the 4. And if I get out of there, oh, wow, the snare's right there. That's pretty hip. And I got out of the way of it. So yeah, you kind of think in terms of arrangement, it could help. Thank you, Brian, for all of this. I'm going to turn over to Dylan real quickly because first of all, he needs to earn his keep, and he's going to assign the homework.
Yes. All right. Hey, so Brian, fantastic. Wow. This was a funky show. So if you're a beginner and you're watching this show, and if you're here for the first time, welcome. If you're not here for the first time, excellent. And also, you're in the right spot, right? So if you're a beginner, we want to get your chickas going. It's important. You heard about the
chickas.
Chicka. That's a technical term, high level. Okay. So what you got to do is you got to check out the Rhythm Tricks course on Fender Play, Stopping Sound. So that's going to help you learn how to do the decay. So when you stop the sound and how to stop the sound with the different hands and in different ways, right? Okay. So that's, if you're a beginner, Rhythm Tricks, Stopping Sound, post the video. If you're intermediate, we want you to learn Sex Machine. Go for the whole song. Don't be afraid to sex it up. It's okay. It's all right. It's 2021. Now, another thing is check out Octaves. We didn't have time to discuss every single technique under the sun for funk guitar, but these are all like common techniques that are used in funk. In fact, in the song I just played, Give It To Me, which is on the site as well by Rick James. And if you're advanced, Le Freak by Chic, right? So Brian played that for us earlier. It's a fantastic song. There's a lot of nuance, a lot of that decay, the cutoff stuff going in there. Post the video. Let us see how it goes.
Wonderful. Thank you for saying the homework, everybody. You got your work cut out for you.
You do.
And Dylan, let's start giving some stuff away. What do you got for us today?
Okay, so if you guys are watching the show for this first time, we give away something every single week. I'm not kidding. We've given away dozens, if not hundreds of pieces of gear, right? So we've got J-basses, acoustics, amps. I think at this point, it's got to be at least 100 pieces of gear. So if you're interested, all you've got to do is join Fender Play, and it's free right now for a week. So you join, you check it out, you hit what's called your weekly streak, which is you get 21 minutes of play, and you're automatically entered to win, and I might call your name right now on next week's show. So do you guys want to hear who won this week?
I'm going to give you a funky ninth chord drum roll.
Give me a funky ninth chord drum roll. It's Sean J. Sean J. Sean.
Way to go, Sean J.
Woo!
Sean spelled S-H-A-U-N. I love
That's right.
spelling of Sean. Sean J. Congratulations. Please enjoy your guitar, the bass, amp, whatever it is you pick. What else do you have for us, Dylan?
Yeah, new stuff on the site constantly, right? We've got the What's New tab for new features on the site, and we've got the Songs tab. We've got the What's New row, so you can constantly scroll through and see the new songs that we've got coming on every week. This week, Fallen by Alicia Keys. Brian, can you give them a little taste of
Beautiful
Fallen?
song. Oh, yeah, Brian.
I think so. I'll give up on it. If that is the right key or the right way to arpeggiate that, it's close.
Alicia, as long as she's not watching, I think we're okay. No, I think that was the right key. We're perfect. We're in good shape. You know what? You guys are going to learn it's in 12/8. It's an awesome song. Check it out. And look for new songs on there, too.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Dylan. And a huge thank you to Brian Robert Jones for helping us out, bring out the funk. Fantastic job. I think you knocked it out of the park. Your first time at the plate. I love it.
Thank you.
You're fun. You're erudite, and
Yes.
and you paint your guitars really well. Frankly,
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Let's give credit. Somebody asked. Oh, that's so funny. Someone asked, "Is that a Starcaster? Can we see that?"
Oh, it
I
is.
So they see the head. They noticed.
I
Good eye, whoever that was.
Yeah,
I brought it over to show these guys earlier,
That's right.
and I forgot it was in frame.
And we
But
can tell
yes.
that it's a Brian Robert Jones guitar, and you'll see why, everybody.
Yeah, it's definitely mine. It has a lot of. I painted
Look
it.
at that, guys. Seriously.
I got this guitar from y'all, and I was like, I really want to paint it, and I was like, I hope it looks okay.
How long did that take
fantastic. It takes kind of a long time. This was like probably 2 full days of it takes about 20 hours to do a guitar.
Can we commission you to paint a guitar for the show? Is that a possibility?
I
Can we
would I would love to do that.
I also
All right.
now at some point the Fender doctor is going to come over and abscond with that and study it. So for the Brian
Yes.
Robert Jones model at some point, they'll
Oh
completely copy the whole thing. Thank you for sharing that. That's so fun. And next time we have you on, we'll hear that Starcaster. Everyone else. Oh, Brian, plug anything you'd like if you have anything coming up.
I don't have a ton coming up, but you can follow me on Instagram, and I'll let you know about that. My Instagram is just Brian Robert Jones, and
Perfect.
yeah, I have and if you want a guitar painted, I am offering it to a limited amount of people via my
awesome.
via my clothing company's website. You can get more information there if you want to check it out.
That's
Good
incredible.
call.
Yeah.
That's great.
I can
That's
only
great.
handle so much. It's a lot of work, so but it's
Get in
great.
line.
If you want one, let's talk. We'll try to figure it out.
Act fast, everyone. Act fast. All right, everyone out there, please keep safe, keep practicing, and we'll see you next week. Same time, same bat channel. Everybody, let's go out on a G chord. 1, 2, 3, 4.